Warning, this video does contain major spoilers from the first 2 original seasons of Twin Peaks.
I'll see you again in 25 years. Meanwhile,
in one more day, Twin Peaks will return to TV. I think that when this happens, I will briefly vanish from the world while I binge watch the new episodes. The films of David Lynch have had a profound impact on my life, and someday I will have to talk more about his work in greater depth. At the time that Twin Peaks premiered on the ABC network, it was a very different world for TV. TV as a mass medium was roughly 40 years old, but it was still the bastard child of movies. It was the lesser medium. TV was where you went when you couldn't make it into motion pictures, or until you could make it into motion pictures. And if you did make your way into movies, you never looked back. Movie stars rarely made appearances on TV shows. You were lowering yourself if you did. And yet, the untapped potential for television was always there. These days, the weekly format of the TV show, the episodic nature of the medium, is now used to give us complex narratives and complex character developments combined with multiple story arcs. But before Twin Peaks, TV was stuck in the episodic format of single self-contained stories with little or no continuity between episodes. TV show characters were, for the most part, stagnant. A main protagonist from the last season of a popular TV show was no different from the first season. It is true that before Twin Peaks, there were both daytime and primetime soap operas, which had continuity from episode to episode, but the storytelling was formulaic and cliched. Just like episodic TV, characters remained in one place from season to season. With few exceptions, TV was safe, and also terribly predictable. Twin Peaks was the brainchild of filmmaker David Lynch and novelist and screenwriter Mark Frost, who was a veteran of TV. The two of them took the format of the soap opera and made it cinematic. Together they made TV unpredictable and unsafe in the best way possible. Twin Peaks could jump between old-school slapstick comedy to stark, terrifying horror. Not since The Twilight Zone had there been such a game-changing series. It's hard to see that now, living in the world of television that exists today. But Twin Peaks broke down barriers that paved the way for genre-bending fantasy and horror shows like The X-Files, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and crime shows like CSI, and character-driven dramas like Breaking Bad. After Twin Peaks, you saw a steady increase in the breaking down and reconstruction of how TV shows were paced, as evidenced in series like Lost. And you saw more genre blending, and you definitely saw more quirk. Twin Peaks caught the public's attention with a fervor with its first season, but lost a lot of that attention during the second. There is a lot that I could say about this, but a lot of it has already been said. One thing that doesn't get brought up, though, is that the first season of Twin Peaks had the distinct advantage of being a mid-season replacement of only 8 episodes. But this was still only the early 90s, and the second season was unfortunately tied down to what was the then network TV standard of 22 episodes per season. If the original series were made today, it would not be tied down to this rigid structure, and unfortunately this is now, and that was then. I personally like the second season, but I admit it has its problems. The James goes on a motorcycle trip storyline stops the series dead cold in its tracks and feels like it's coming from one of those other 80s network soap operas like Dallas and Knots Landing. There are other, of course, things I could say too, but this is just an example. David Lynch never wanted to reveal who Laura's killer was, but I'm glad that he did. The series gets a tremendous sense of closure in episode 9 when the demon Bob, in possession of Leland Palmer's body, admits to Agent Cooper and to all of us that he killed Laura Palmer. After the demon is exorcised from Leland Palmer and he passes away, there is this amazing bit of dialogue between Sheriff Truman and Agent Cooper that I'll never forget. In it, Sheriff Truman expresses his inability to accept the idea that Leland Palmer was somehow being controlled by some kind of not-of-this-world evil force. And Agent Cooper calmly responds to his disbelief by asking him if the idea of a man raping and murdering his own daughter is somehow easier to believe, somehow more comforting. And Sheriff Truman just responds with a very somber no. As far as I'm concerned, Season 2 could have ended right there. Looking forward, I'm sure that a lot of fans will be wondering what this new season will bring. Where will everyone be 25 years later? What happened to Agent Cooper after Bob possessed him in the Season 2 finale? I myself have not taken part in any of these discussions with anyone because I know that the only one thing that I can expect from this new season of Twin Peaks and from David Lynch is the unexpected. And I do have to wonder if the reaction from fans will be similar to the reaction that the Twin Peaks movie Fire Walk With Me received after its initial release. I personally think that Fire Walk With Me is an underrated masterpiece. But upon its initial release, many fans were upset. They wanted to know what happened after Season 2. They didn't want a prequel to Season 1. I am sure that many fans are excited with the prospect that now they will finally know the answers to these questions. But I have a feeling that David Lynch is going to take us down pathways that no one will be expecting, and that at first, not unlike the Twin Peaks prequel movie, some of us might be upset with where those pathways will lead. But I also think that in time we will begin to appreciate it in the same way that a lot of fans have come around to Fire Walk With Me years later. So if you are a longtime fan, let's stay open-minded to what comes next. I'm looking forward to posting my thoughts on the first 4 installments sometime next week. This is TJR. Thanks so much for watching, and please subscribe to the channel.